This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Wrestling with Tragedy. It is us, the Russo's Brand Crack Investigation Unit, the Wrestling with Tragedy team, and we are here to kick it off. And today we have a very, very interesting topic we're going to be discussing. But before we get into that, I'm going to throw it over, and it's always good to see my boy, my friend, the Kingpin himself, the ECW original, Angel motherfucking Medina. What's going on,
I forgot
bro?
it. I forgot to hit my on-air sign, man. Unprofessional.
Come on, bro, man. I thought I would have trained you better by now, bro.
Oh man. Hey, if I took any lessons from you, I think my accounts would have been deleted a long time ago. Anyway.
Dude, but before we get into tonight's show, bro, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about our sponsors, my homie?
Yeah, man, definitely check out smartcups.com. Definitely, if you having a bad day, you're not getting out of bed, and you don't want to hit those energy drinks that have all those preservatives, and you want something with natural ingredients, definitely go to smartcups.com. That gives you your boost, gets you ready to go for your day, and you don't have to worry about any hard crash. So if you need it, take it, live it. Smartcups.com is the way to go. Check them out.
That's it. And Angel, we are now going to start going in the world of looking at some other tragedies, not just in the world of pro wrestling, but we're going to be wrestling with some of the biggest tragedies, incidents, if you will, that have happened across the world, not just in the United States, or in Australia, but from around the world, that we're going to be looking at some additional ones. We're still going to be covering off wrestling stories as well. That's still going to be our bread and butter, if you will. But we are looking at going into a different realm to show you guys at what we really have available. But guys.
Well, and I was just going to agree with you real quick. Yeah, absolutely. Just because we're just doing a little bit of a twist in Wrestling with Tragedy, because regardless of the fact, if it's not wrestling related, you're still wrestling with some form of tragedy in your life, meaning in the topics that we're going to be talking about, people dealing with the situation. So we just want to put a little bit of a spin, a little bit of a little taste of something new.
Now, Angel, getting on to this episode today, we're going to be talking about the Milperra Massacre. So the Milperra Massacre happened in a quiet suburb of Sydney, Australia, on Father's Day, September 2nd, 1984. Seven people.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just curiosity, the Milperra, you said is a suburb part of Australia.
It's a suburb in Sydney. Yes.
No, is it like a I hate saying it. Is it like a ritzy part of town in Australia, or is it more of a quiet area?
It's like the western suburbs of Sydney, so like the blue collar sort of worker area, if you will. I keep saying if you will for some reason. I'm turning into Dusty man. But
and the only reason, like I'm saying, for the fans out there that I'm asking these questions, because this has happened in Australia. This is something I'm not really familiar with. I did read the articles. I know what happened, but I'm just getting pierced aside because I don't know what Milperra is. It's just a suburb. I just wanted to know what it was all about.
So the Milperra Massacre happened at the Mill Tavern. Which happened now, which is what it's called now. Sorry. So basically, what the backstory of this massacre and what occurred is, it was between two rival motorcycle gangs, the Comancheros Motorcycle Club and the Bandidos Motorcycle Club. So this basically happened because there was a split. So the Comancheros were one big club. They moved their clubhouse to Birch Grove in the Sydney, which is a very ritzy type area, where they had a clubhouse. Basically half of the club was getting tired of the president who ran the Comancheros and the founder of the Comancheros, Jock Ross, who was basically training his guys for military exercises. So like he wanted his guys to be like ready, physically fit, like if a fight was to break out. And the younger generation of Comancheros were feeling that they just wanted to ride bikes, drink beer with their friends and have fun. But so there was a divide there. Now, the Milperra Massacre. Now, I'm just going to say this. This left 7 people were killed. and many more were seriously injured. At the subsequent trial, Justice Roden said, "As patriotism can lead to jingoism and mateship can lead to cronyism, so bikie club loyalty can lead to bikie club war."
And what's jingoism? Just curiosity. I never heard of that terminology before. Is that an Australian thing or just across the board? I never.
You know what? I don't know. I will find out that for you as we go on to the show. But
no,
like,
just curiosity. I'm sorry, just curiosity. So this is like the biggest thing that ever happened in Australia history, correct? I mean, this type of massacre.
This massacre, like Australia had never seen anything like this before, and has never seen anything like this since, Angel. So the main split with the Comancheros and the Bandidos was, one of basically the Comancheros, before they split, one of the Comancheros from the Birchgrove chapter decided to go and find, this is before they really had the split, but decided he would go and to another member's house, and he allegedly found Jock Ross in a compromising position with the other member's wife, which was one of the rules of the club, which is you don't mess with anyone else's old lady.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the sergeant at arms, Caesar Campbell, for the Comancheros, he called a meeting and he wanted Jock to basically face these charges. So there was multiple times where the meeting was to set place. So basically what would have happened is Jock would have been voted out of his own club for breaking his own rules that he set forward. So he refused to turn up. And then basically at the third meeting, he turned up and then he announced that the club was going to split, that he was going to start another chapter, which is going to go back to the western suburbs to where the club originated from, and the Birchgrove chapter would stay there. The divide then started to happen between the two chapters. And the second chapter, the Birchgrove chapter, which was run by, Anthony Snodgrass Spencer, who would go on to be the founding president, national president for the Bandidos Motorcycle Club in Australia. So he went to Texas in the United States a couple years beforehand, and he really liked the Bandito sort of way of thinking. He saw that there was a split happening with the Comancheros. Then he spoke to the national Bandito president in the United States, and then he got the green light to commission the Bandidos Australian chapters, and Snoddy Spencer being the inaugural and first national president for the Bandidos Australia.
And that's the end of Wrestling with Tragedy as we speak. Anyway, no, but just curiosity. Snoddy Spencer, Snodgrass Spencer. They call him Snoddy, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Right? That was short. Now, the name Snoddy comes from where he was from originally, Snodgrass. It was like
that was like his favorite cartoon. Like that was like he was mainly. Oh. Yeah, so that what I mean. Like they gave them a nickname. That's why like a lot of the guys back then had different types of nicknames. So it was around the 80s.
I thought that he got that name because that was from a location he was from. I thought Snodgrass was a location. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, but when I did my research, I thought that's what he was originally from. A location called Snodgrass.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So, obviously, there was a lot of stuff happening between the two clubs, where even Jock Ross was run off his bike. Then the Bandidos clubhouse was shot up, which was, Jock Ross has since admitted that he orchestrated that hit and orchestrated that happening. The Comancheros clubhouse got shot up. This was really escalating into something bigger than what the police or anyone could really have told of what was going to happen on this day. And that's the thing, you look at this story and what's occurred. As I said before, Angel, Australia had never seen anything like this before. And definitely never seen anything since. And it changed the gun laws here in Australia as well.
But how can I put it? So the Comancheros and the Bandidos, I mean, this was just the only two biker gangs that were in Australia, or were there more, or just minor
No,
role?
there was more. There was others there, like there's other organizations,
So these are
but
just the main dudes, like the
well, no,
WWE, or like,
no. So the Comancheros were like had their club,
yeah, I
and
got you.
basically the Comancheros, the club split, so it went off to be different chapters, right? So they're going to have
No,
the Western Sydney chapter and the other chapter, and that's where the split started to occur between the two.
no, and I understand that, but I'm just looking at it from a perspective like the Comancheros and the Bandidos were the elite gangs of in Australia. There was probably other ones, but there was nobody could like, oh, these were the top two gangs in Australia. That's what I meant.
Yeah, we definitely had other gangs as well. Like there was other motorcycle clubs there, and around at the time. But this was this battle was the beef between the two clubs, the
Gotcha.
beef that really sort of became that split. And police believe that the war began over, turf or drugs or a combination of both. But both clubs at the time had a strong no drug policy. Caesar Campbell, who was the sergeant of arms of both the Comancheros chapter and the sergeant of arms of the Bandidos,
Mm-hmm.
after they were patched over, he basically, the animosity of the split was the sole reason, was just because they were sick and tired of Jock Ross.
Okay. So, just curiosity. So, the One Percenters was just the name of the club that the Comancheros had.
No, so the terminology 1%er, that comes from, I believe it was told by a judge. Basically the majority of people, the terminology for 1%ers saw some motorcycle clubs be distinguished by a 1% patch worn on the colors. This is said to refer to comment by the American Motorcycle Association that 99% of motorcyclists were law-abiding citizens, applying that the 1% were outlaws. So that's why you see, like, those motorcycle clubs will rock the 1% patch, because that's them saying that they're that 1%. We're not like the 99% of good law-abiding citizens,
So, all right. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Like I said, I didn't know about that 1% or how that worked out. I mean, I just thought that was the name of the club. But let's get to the meat of the matter. I mean, what led? I mean, when the Father's Day incident. I mean, let's just talk about what led to that. How did it build up to that moment?
So the Father's Day massacre occurred at Viking Tavern, which was, they had a swap meet that was happening in the parking lot there, which was scheduled for 10 a.m. on Sunday, the 2nd of September, 1984. Now, on that day at around 1 p.m., 19 armed Comancheros entered the car park of the Viking Tavern during the swap meet, and they took up. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and the swap meet, just, I mean, when I was doing my research, it was like a lot of motorcycle parts, a lot of motorcycle
it's
stuff.
like it's just like a like where people would set up stalls and to sell stuff. You know what I mean? Like motorcycle parts and like leather and that sort of shit.
Basically, a
right?
flea market, U.S. flea market.
Yeah, that would probably be the equivalent to it. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, so the Comancheros, they went into the swap meet and took up positions in hiding. They were also using walkie-talkies for communication.
Mm-hmm.
So Jock Ross, who was the leader and president of the Comancheros, who was a military enthusiast, he to stand in the open to give the appearance he was alone, hoping to draw the Bandidos into a pincer movement that was based on the Bullhorn ambush. And he read that he had been used in the Second Boer War, which he was distracted by the presence of members of rival club, the Mob Shitters, and went to the back of the Mob Shitters.
Okay, I heard you correct. I was like,
yeah, so, and went to the back of the tavern to ensure they're not going to get involved. So, basically with Jock Ross, you see this guy who was definitely one of the guys where it was saying like, and when he made the split of the two chapters before the Bandidos came into the picture, one of the things he says in the Western Sydney chapter, my vote will be the final vote. So he was really taking that, the outlaw rule book, so to speak, and basically trying to change it for his own personal gain.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty shocked about it. Like, I mean, the weird thing about it is that when I watched it, the actual news footage and stuff like that, I mean, like you said, people didn't expect something like that to happen in a suburb part, especially on Father's Day. I mean, it was like a teenage girl was killed.
14-year-old girl Leanne Waters was shot dead
basically in the face.
Yeah,
so like in the jaw area, I think it was.
Yeah, so she died. 4 Comancheros were shot and murdered, and 2 Bandido members were shot and murdered. This saw, between the two, the battle going for nearly 15 minutes. Once police arrived, and I've actually seen an interview with the first responding officer, and he went in there and he had a shotgun. And then as he's gone in to go in the corner, he's faced with one of the MC members with another gun pointing at him. And he was saying, who the fuck, basically, who the fuck are you? And he's like, I'm a police officer, I'm a cop, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, the motorcycle member had told the police officer, you need to put the gun down. And the officer said, okay, I'll put the gun down, but you have to put your gun down too. And I have to get people in here to attend to the wounded. So you need to go and ensure that my safety and their safety is going to happen. And then that's what this guy did. He walked in, collected all the firearms, came over and handed it back out, and basically had the officer walk in with his hands out like that and started loading the rifles into his arms.
Now, I mean, just curiosity. I mean, when the cop came around the corner, I knew his asshole was puckered because, I mean, that's something that you was not expecting to come across. Even though you knew things were happening, it's just something that just startled him. Now, it took a lot of courage for him to just say, hey, I'll put my gun down, but if I put my gun down, you need to put yours, and I'll put down mine first. He could have been, taken out real quick, because he was in plain clothes. As far as I saw the thing, he was in plain clothes. He didn't look like a police officer, so that he could have just thought that he would have. I mean, I know he was probably clean shaven and stuff like that, but still, the guy could have said, "Nah, he's probably one of them."
Emotions are high as well, bro. You have to understand that this man had just been involved in a fucking shootout. His emotions would be sky high as well. So the fact that he could have very easily just turned around and blasted that police officer, and that police officer is very lucky to be alive.
Oh yeah, I heard he got some commendations in regards to this incident, for his bravery and from de-escalating the situation. Even though it was high in regards to like this type of massacre, but I mean, he just was cool, calm, collect. Even though inside he was nervous as hell, he kept his composure, which is pretty. It takes a lot for a person to do that.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, Angel, you look at this had happened, and it really gave motorcycle clubs a different. They were viewed differently by police, because I think at that stage that they would get into a few fights and punch ups and stuff like that, and they were badasses. But this was probably the first time that something like this, which just. You know what I mean? Like I said, in broad daylight, in the middle of the day, that this occurring, and so many innocent people getting, hurt, like injured and hurt, and a young victim of a 14-year-old girl also being killed. That's rough.
Well, and we'll definitely get to that 14-year-old girl in a minute. Now, what really intrigued me, and the reason I'm looking away is I can't remember that lady's name who took the photos of the massacre in action. Apparently, she was sitting in her vehicle, when it occurred, and a shotgun blast went through her windshield, and the pellets were like embedded in her face. Nothing too severe, but she did receive some glass fragments and some pellets in the face. And when she got out of the vehicle, she went behind the van, and for whatever reason, she decided to take out her camera and started pointing and taking pictures of what was going on. That was the pinnacle of the court case that really helped them out to determine who had the guns in their hands, who was involved, where they were at when the incident was happening. She was like, she was really one of the instrumental key factors of the case that definitely helped them to charge these 40, I think it was 43. Even though no, there was 43 people there, but I think 43 people were charged, wasn't it? For 7 counts.
Yeah, so 7 counts. So one of the things that they about this as well, one of the people that was killed, Greg Shadow Campbell, it was actually, when it went to trial, his own brother was charged with the murder of his of him.
But were they both on the same side, right? Like
they were both on the same side, but they're saying like but for some reason they were saying brother. He shot his own brother.
Could have been by accident. Oops. Since the heat of the moment, he could have shot his brother by accident. You know, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's still it's a pretty, you know, that's a pretty heavy thing to sort of go through as well. But you know, there's even, you know, photos of you know, the aftermath of the Milperra Massacre, and you see, you know, because there was a couple of sets of brothers in the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, the McElwaneys and the Campbells.
The
McElwaneys, yeah, and the Campbells. So Caesar Campbell, who was the sergeant of arms that we mentioned before for both the Comancheros and the Bandidos. Now, Angel, let's break down what a sergeant of arms is to a motorcycle club. Like, what is their role as a sergeant of arms?
I mean, I'm taking a guess here. I mean, he's basically the right hand man of that individual. I mean, he kind of like is the person who is underneath. It's almost like the mafia, man. You have your underboss, you have your Star Trek #1, your first officer who handles, if things pop off, he takes control. He's your go-to guy.
Yeah, so he's basically like, with the sergeant arms, they're the baddest, not the baddest, but they're the toughest of the tough. And so Caesar Campbell was known as being someone who was a very aggressive fighter. Like he could blue, he could throw hands, and he, no doubt about it. And one of the things that they actually state, that before the first shot went off, is that they were arguing, and Caesar could be heard saying, "Put down the fucking guns, let's fight like men." So
yeah, and they were all struggling with it with the barrel up in the air when it went off the first round, and that's kind of like it was like a starter pistol, basically, to set shit off.
Yeah, and it's like, you look at that sort of situation of how it could have escalated. If it was just a brawl and that there was no guns involved, the story probably wouldn't be remembered. You know what I mean? Like 36 years later, it's not going to be remembered like that. But obviously, because they did go there with firearms, they did go there with weapons, and that's what ultimately made it the end result.
Now, just curiosity. I mean, again, not saying I'm ignorant in regards to Australian law compared to the United States law, because in the United States you have the right to bear arms. You have a right to carry, conceal in certain states of the of the US of A. But just curiosity. I mean, what you saying that it changed the gun laws in Australia? But what was it? What changed? Meaning, what was it like before they changed the gun laws? Were you able to walk around with guns? What kind of guns were you able to walk around with? And then after the fact, what changed? Because I was just thinking, aren't you still allowed to have guns for like? And again, I'm not familiar, but like shooting kangaroos for food, or if something or an animal comes on you. Well, you can eat kangaroos, so I'm just saying you got to shoot them or kill them with some form of.
Look, As a result of the massacre, the New South Wales Firearms and Dangerous Weapons Act of 1973, which allowed registered gun owners the right to carry firearms in public, was subsequently amended to require a good reason for the issue of a firearm license.
Mm-hmm.
So it went from being like, yeah, you could have it, like anyone could have a firearm license. You can walk around the street with a gun. It's no problem at all.
Like
To
Arizona,
then saying, well, yeah, but now it's like saying, well, why do you need a gun? Why do you need a gun license? What reason do you have to have a firearm?
Yeah, I mean, like here in the U.S., I mean, like me, I'm the former law enforcement. I was able to get my carry conceal after the fact because I just had that skill to be able to obtain my gun license. Here is not that difficult. All you have to do is to attend some classes and some safety classes, and if they ask you what's the reason to for you to have a gun, is just to protect my family and to protect myself. That's the reason. And there's no other.
And that's the thing, Angel. Like we have conversations about this, and you can't believe that I can just go up to someone in the street and go, "Hey, mate, can you tell me where this place is?" Like you're like, "Man, you do that where I'm from, bro, you're going to get shot." And it's like, even when I've spoken to people in America, it's like, "Man, how do you protect yourself if you don't have a gun?" I'm like, "What do I need to protect myself from, bro?" Like that's the mentality of Australians. Like we don't think that we have to have a firearm to protect ourselves.
Well, I mean, and I totally understand that concept because it was like that before. Like New York City, it's hard to get a gun license. You have to have a valid reason. If you work at a jewelry store, if you worked at a liquor store, or you worked at a store itself, and you walk out with a lot of money to take to the safety deposit box. Your former law enforcement. But if you're just a regular Joe, then you really have to show some reason why you need to carry a gun, even though you have a clean record. Here in Kansas, like certain places like Texas, Arizona, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need it. You don't need to explain why you need one as long as you have you come back with a clean background check and you have a right. That's part of the Constitution. You have a right to bear arms. There is no reason.
Yeah. No, and I think that was a massive change in it. And then there was further changes made in around 1996 to the gun laws here in Australia. But getting back to the Milperra Massacre itself. So we mentioned that it was, 7 people left dead. So 4 Comanchero members, Philip Leroy Jessic, Ivan Sparrow Romick, and Robert Foggy Lane, and Tony Dog McCoy. 4 Comanchero members died. 2 Bandidos members, Greg Shadow Campbell and Mario Chopper Sonata, as well as 1 innocent bystander, a 14-year-old girl named Leanne Waters.
Well, and also the injured photographer. Well, she was not a photographer.
Well, we're just talking. We're talking about the deceased, right? So
yeah. Oh,
7
excuse
people.
me. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But it left 7 people dead, Angel, and that's where we sort of look at this as being such a dark day in Australian history.
But I don't really see it as a dark day, in my opinion. I mean, the 7 individuals that got killed. I mean, I hate saying they deserved what they got, but if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. I mean, I'm just more concerned about the individuals that were innocent people that were just in.
Bro, what about the 14-year-old girl is one of the 7 people killed. She was an innocent bystander. She was
that's what I was saying.
Standing there,
I'm just. I was just saying, like, that's what I mean. That's what I'm more focused on, the people that were just innocent. These guys knew what they were getting into. They knew the outcome of that situation, even though they didn't think they were going to die, but they knew something was going to pop off. She was 14 years old, shopping around, having a good time. She didn't even give her dad the Father's Day present that she got him. He had to get that after the fact.
Yeah. And that's man, imagine, like, we're both parents. Dude, that no parent should have to experience their child going before them. Like that's one of the worst tragedies that could ever happen to any person to experience, in my eyes. I think as well, like the outcome of this, that these guys and the hatred between the two clubs was so great that they just had blinders on, and whether they didn't care about anyone else being there in the crossfire, or they just it didn't come into their mind to consider that. You know what I mean? Like if they just had that blinders on of going, we have to destroy these guys.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, like I said, I watched a lot of the news articles. I mean, I watched a lot of the news reports that were on that the interviews that they did. It was pretty interesting how this just like really stemmed off, because basically Snotty or Snodgrass was the main reason why things popped off that way, because it was just that built up hostility towards the Comancheros.
But I think as well, like it came down to like a lot of the Bandidos chapter before the split saw Jock as he's broken these club rules. He needs to face consequence, which is at church, which is their meeting, and he basically failed to turn up twice. The third time, but the meeting never took place. He just said, "We're splitting the club."
Well, I mean, just like any type of environment, just from like the pro wrestling world, from the MMA world, yeah, it's an elite club. You know, there's certain rules. You know, I mean, and you have to abide by those rules. And when people feel that they've been betrayed, you know, just like Caesar and Brutus died to Brute, you know, then you know, I could see like, you know, people do get like their feelings, not their feelings hurt, but yeah, you violated our club rules, you betrayed us, you did an oath, and
You
now
created the club rules as well.
yeah. So
Like,
and then you go against them. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard, especially when you're in that type of world. You know,
yeah,
was
100%.
just curiosity, was the Comancheros, I can't remember. What they were a little bit. Were they involved in the drugs and dealing drugs and stuff like that on the side? I can't remember if I saw that, unless I was watching something else.
I don't believe so. I don't
Okay.
believe so. Yeah, like I think a lot of this stuff just stemmed from, like I said, animosity between the two, and I think ego comes into play with a lot of this as well. And it's almost like a game of one-upmanship, and you see where it was like saying, like, you look at the Comancheros turning up that day and going into hiding spots with walkie-talkies. Like, that's not preparing for a fight. That's not preparing to get into a blue with someone when you're going to throw hands. You know, like there's a lot of things saying that they had no idea that it was going to escalate to that thing. I think that they didn't expect it to escalate to that. But in saying that, when you turn up to something with firearms, when emotions are high, you're really putting yourself in a situation which is not going to end well for anyone. And that's exactly what happened on September 2nd, 1984.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It didn't end well for a lot of those individuals. Even Anthony Snodgrass, I mean, he even hung himself in a cell. You know,
Yeah.
when he apparently he had they say he was like felt guilty. He had a heavy sense of guilt. I don't know what guilt it was towards the massacre itself, the loss of his brothers, or him being in jail. I just didn't know, you know, did he know that he was going to get convicted and he was going to go up the river for a while and he didn't want to face that to go to jail and he hung himself? I mean, did you ever find out any information in regards to why he did it?
So I think, yeah, it came down to from the information that I've been able to find out about Snodgrass Spencer, is that he was just kind of like a lost soul, man, and like this sort of happened, and you know he was being accused of the murder of Leanne Waters as well. You know, he wasn't sleeping, and I think that, you know, going through something like what they went through at the Milperra Massacre, and I'm not trying to, you know, sensationalize what happened in any way, or to give pity to any of these guys in any way, but I think that with every, like, you have to look at the human aspect of it, and it's like post-traumatic stress. right? So you see that with people that go into battle and go into war and stuff like that. And people that are in the army and the military, they come back and they have post-traumatic stress syndrome. I think Snotty had that from the Milperra Massacre. And I think that with the guilt and everything that was going to happen, that happened, I should say, I think that had basically just got the better of him and drove him to that.
I don't know, man. I mean, post-traumatic stress in regards to that. I mean, yeah, you could get PTS from many situations, but I think it was mostly guilt. I think he knew he was up shit's creek, and he knew that killing a child, that probably took effect in his, like, man, we killed the kid. I mean, even though he didn't pull the trigger himself, he felt like he could have been. He was the one that led to her passing. Which, again, I feel sad for the father, because, I mean, like you say, no father or mother or grandparent wants to bury their grandkids, their kids. I mean, that's just the last thing they want to do in this world. I can't fathom seeing my daughter passing away, and I can't even think about that, because I'd be traumatized and beside myself. But I think it was just a lot of guilt of what happened. I mean, innocent person died, one person injured, so I think that was the fact that he, that took its toll to him. I mean, even though he had mental issues, but I think that probably was the caveat of it.
Yeah, and Caesar Campbell, after the Milperra Massacre, he went on the run, and later police found him in Western Australia and brought him back for trial. But the trial of the Milperra Massacre, you mentioned before, Angel, at the time was one of the largest in Australian history, with 43 people originally charged with 7 counts of murder under the doctrine of common purpose. However, charges against 10 were dropped before the trial. Bernard Bernie Podograsky, who was the secretary of the Bandidos, was granted immunity after turning Queen's evidence. One of the solicitors who acted for the Bandidos members charged as a result of incident, as he was then represented by one of the Bandidos members during that trial. That being Colin Campbell, aka Caesar.
So was that guy ever threatened because he what'd you say he called Queen's
evidence?
Queen's evidence. Was he ever threatened from the other members saying, "Oh, you snitch, you're gonna get it for stooging us out"?
I can't find any information about it, but like you'd have to imagine that would be the case, right?
Well, I mean, just thinking, because the woman who took the photos that led to the prosecution of these other individuals, she was getting threatened on a daily basis. Even when she went to court and she was sitting there testifying, they were all the members were just looking at her, doing the finger across the throat in her direction. And she was saying that she was like, oh my God, they're threatening my life, and it continued to threaten her life for a lot of years. She said she was looking over her shoulders many times.
Dude, it comes down to it. Like, when you're looking to put people away that are affiliated with organizations like this, Angel, you know what I mean? Like they're not just going to sit there and let that slide. You know what I mean? Like, you look at everything that sort of happened, with this incident. The woman taking photos, the woman who took photos is literally being able to point, saying that this person had that gun, he killed that man with that gun. And that, was able to put people with the photos, the people with the firearms who were doing the shooting.
Yeah, it just basically it was a map of where everybody was at that moment when things were happening. They knew where this guy was behind the car with a rifle. They placed the guns in people's hands. Now, just Pierce, I mean, not to change the subject, but I'm still curious. What are you allowed to carry in Australia? Are you able to have a rifle or on your property? Or, like I said, I don't know the rules in regards to what are you allowed to have on your property for protection if something does happen.
If you have a license to have a firearm, then you have to basically have your firearm in a safe. That is where it has to be. And that is between the only reason you can have it out of the safe is if you were taking it to the range to fire it or take it to get serviced. You can't just sit there and have it sitting on your table in your house. Like, it has to remain in the safe. Guns have to be in a different location in your house, so they can't be in the same safe as the firearm itself.
So, are you allowed to hunt? It's a stupid question. Are you allowed to hunt in Australia? Do you have a hunter's license?
If you have a hunter's license, and there is reason, like, people can, like, who live in the outback, they have a culling license, which means that they have to cull a certain number of kangaroos each year.
See, then you laugh because I mentioned kangaroos, and then you just prove my point. But so if anything, like, I don't know, dude. I don't know what's in the fucking outback or like when shit comes on your property. What kind of animals that are real dangerous? That, like, like, oh, there's a like in the United States, this fucking bear, this fucking massive bear.
We don't have that. We don't have that shit here.
I know you don't have bears. So I'm just saying, you don't have dangerous animals that come on your property that you need to protect.
I mean, we would, but I'm in the city, bro. Like, I don't.
Well, no, I'm just curious. I know the laws. I mean, I'm just saying that the laws are different when you, like, the further you're out of the city. So I just didn't know, like, fuck that in Australia. Like, no, regardless of where you live, you're not allowed to have guns. Fuck you. If we catch you, that's your ass. So that's why I was just curious how that works when it's the further out of the city you go. Are the rules change? Do the rules change? Like, are you allowed to carry?
It would depend. Like, as long as you have a license for the firearm and a reason to have that firearm, then that's fine. And
I'm sorry to ask all these questions. It's just I'm not.
No. You're right, man.
But in the United States, it's just a wholly different world. I mean, it's just totally. You can have a gun on your property, a rifle on your property. You can blast away and kill a mountain lion and say, "Yeah, mountain lion was on my property and was gonna kill my family, or my kid was in danger." That's all.
So one of the things I wanted to let you know about this trial, that this is the guilty finding, right? So Jock Ross and 4 Comancheros motorcycle members and 1 Bandito were found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. These convictions were later set aside on speak and reduced to manslaughter. None of the guilty served their full sentence. Jock Ross served the longest time, which was a period of 5 years and I believe 10 months.
And right now, I mean, I think Jock Ross works for the fire department. He
works for the volunteer fire service.
Yeah,
he's a 70-plus-year-old man who stepped away from that club.
No, he still
wears his colors. Yeah, but he's now retired from.
Yeah, he retired. Yeah, but he still wears his colors, and I wonder how. Okay, basically, my thought is, like, you're wearing your colors. You was in the incident of the Milperra Massacre. That has a bad reputation, a bad name, a bad light on on those colors. So, do you think the police mess with him when they see him wearing those type of colors? Knowing that of the situation.
Well, look, the Comancheros are still in existence to this day. The same with the Bandidos. So, I think that you look at what occurred back in 1984, and I think that changed the landscape for a lot of how as I said before, how the police viewed motorcycle clubs. Whereas I think before they just thought, oh, they're just the good old boys. They bend a couple of laws here and there. They're tough nuts. They fight. They drink. But I don't think anyone ever expected it to turn the way that it did. But just to sort of before we sort of start wrapping it up, Angel, there was in a repetition of the circumstances that led to the Milperra Massacre in early 2007. More than 60 members of the Parramatta and Granville chapters of the Nomads Motorcycle Club, previously affiliated with the Comancheros, defected to the Bandidos. The defection resulted in new eruption of violence between the Comancheros and the Bandidos, involving fire bombings, drive-by shootings. New South Wales Police set up Operation Ranmore to stop the violence escalating, which resulted in 340 arrests. on 883 charges as of January 2008. So final thoughts, Angel?
Well, like my final thoughts in regards to this situation is like, it's funny how, okay, and again, I'm sorry about the Milperra Massacre. It's just that in the United States, I've seen some bigger massacres. But again, like you said, this is the biggest thing that ever happened to Australia, so that's something to them is a massacre. I don't feel no remorse in regards to the individuals that died besides the innocent girl that shouldn't have been there, because I felt, I feel bad that, the one innocent person got killed. Those individuals that got involved, they deserve what they got. I wish they got the life sentences that they deserved instead of like brought down to manslaughter. I wish, I think they should have just got their hands chopped off or something like that. My final thoughts is that I just think this was the most craziest situation that happened in Australia history. Reading the story, it just shook up the world and changed the gun laws. And now they really strict on it, and I'm kind of shocked at how it is, because I'm so used to carrying a gun in the United States. So it's kind of like I feel naked if I don't carry my gun everywhere, but I have the choice to have it. And I feel like when I'm in Australia, you don't have the choice anymore. You can't do it. And that's just the weirdest thing for me.
Yeah, look, my final thought was it was, something which, impacted, the Australian public and the New South and people of Sydney. It was the most violent thing that has ever happened in Australian history. And I stand by that statement. Like, it was one of the most gruesome things. A young child, a 14-year-old girl, to lose her life on Father's Day, and to be the father that lost your child on Father's Day, that is one of the most barbaric, horrible things that any person could ever feel or go through. And, my condolences go out to the Waters family for losing their little girl.
Yeah, it sucks to lose a child or a parent or anybody, but especially on the holiday, like for example, Christmas or Father's Day, because you're always going to know that day as the day is no longer an enjoyable day. It's more of a horrific day for you to relive. So I feel bad for the family. But anyway, man, let's just close it off, man. This is kind of our first off the wrestling topic, so I'm kind of like a baby deer trying to walk for the first time. I'm stumbling on this. So
it's been fun though, right?
It's interesting, and thanks for the fans to just give us an opportunity to bring it to them, firsthand. But let's get our sponsors up.
Well, that's it, guys. Make sure you check out smartcups.com. Smartcups.com. Help Angel get his day started every single day. Keep those old man bones. Keep driving and going forward, especially in the morning, getting that kickstart for him. All natural, no preservatives, and none of the nasty afterburn, which is the nasty crash that you get from most energy drinks as well. But guys, until then, we are the Crack Investigation Unit of the Russo's brand. Make sure you can check us out on patreon.com/RussoTWC. You can find us on all your podcast platforms, baby. And you can also find us on YouTube as well. But until next time, this is Pierce. This is Angel. We're signing off, and we'll see you next week.
Peace out.